Well, online dating has become a popular avenue for people to meet new partners and rekindle romance. With the proliferation of these dating apps and websites that are tailored for a more mature demographic, individuals can connect now with other people who share similar interests and life experiences. However, this convenience also brings certain risk, including fraud, identity theft, privacy breaches, and frankly, physical safety concerns. So stick around for some ideas on how you can reduce these risks and ensure a safer, more enjoyable online dating experience. But keep in mind, my advice still would be to avoid online dating altogether. Hey everybody, welcome to Profiling Evil. It has been so busy that I completely forgot to complete a video project I started almost a year ago, a video on dating apps and the dangers. I reached out to a friend, journalist Nancy Jo Sales, an award-winning journalist, for help on this one, and I'm including my interview with her a little later in this video, so please make sure you stick around for that. And please hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell so that you get more of our videos. Now I'm tucking this video with Nancy Jo inside the Profiling Evil Academy playlist, and I hope that you'll consider sharing it with your friends and your contacts. But before delving into the risk reduction strategies that I've got for you, I think it's crucial to understand the nature of the risks associated with online dating. And I suspect many of you already know all these. I'm going to put them into four simple buckets, though: identity theft and fraud, privacy breaches, emotional and psychological risks, and the physical safety risks. So before we tackle those, I want to share just a couple of quick thoughts on personal information security. And you know this because you've all been dealing with the internet now for quite some time. But if you're going to jump into the world of online dating, make sure that you're using a reputable platform for access. And I don't know which ones are reputable. Do your research and choose well-established dating apps and websites that are specifically designed for us, mature adults. These platforms often have user reviews and security measures that are tailored for a more mature audience. Now, ensure that the platform you choose uses encryption and data security technologies to protect your personal data. That is the most important thing, protecting your personal data. Look for platforms that emphasize user safety and that have clear privacy policies. Now, as you create your user profile, avoid any personal identifiers. Don't include things like your full name. Don't include your home address or your workplace or any other identifying details in your profile. You might consider using a nickname or your first name only to protect your identity. This is really crucial, folks. And make sure you're using a unique email address. You might consider just going out and creating a separate email account for online dating, something that protects your primary email from spam and potential hacking. This also helps you keep your dating life separate from your other online activities, like going to Profiling Evil. Now, you can find a number of email providers who will allow you to add additional email addresses to your account. So think about things like Yahoo or Google or others as a way to do that. Now, you're likely going to feel compelled to include some photographs of yourself. So make sure you provide a photo that accurately depicts who you are today. Don't sweat the fact that you probably look a little different than you did 20 years ago. I mean, check this out. And please, make sure that you don't reveal any location or personal detail information. I'd also urge you to avoid using photos that are linked to your other social media accounts or any kind of photo that reveals your home environment or your work environment. And when you reach the point that you actually want to communicate face-to-face with a potential suitor, use web apps that are designed for this, such as the app associated with the dating platform. Resist the urge to move your conversation to a messaging app that's personal, like maybe your iCloud account or something. Sticking with the dating platform communication tool that's provided gives you an extra layer of security, and it allows for that platform to monitor for suspicious activity. Now, when you start sharing how amazing you are, avoid sharing things like your phone number, your address, social media profiles, or any kind of personal details until you are really comfortable and you've really verified that person's authenticity. Gradually reveal information as you build the trust you're comfortable with. And continually watch out for those red flags, the things that are telling you this is too good to be true. Be wary of profiles that seem perfect or individuals who profess love too quickly. Scammers will often use flattery and rapid intimacy to manipulate victims. Pay close attention to what's being said time and again. Like maybe ask the same question several conversations later to see if the answer is the same. Scammers have a hard time remembering what they've said. Pay attention to discrepancies in the person's stories and question internally any information that's not adding up for you. I mean, this could be a sign that they are not who they claim to be. So trust yourself and disregard any effort this new friend might employ to convince you that they aren't remembering or that you're not remembering something correctly. And never, 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 never send money to somebody you've just met. Genuine connections don't ask for financial help early in the relationship. If that person that you're hoping to build a life with can't think and put things together today, I'd give the relationship a bunch more time. Now make sure that you're maintaining boundaries as your relationship develops. For instance, if your new friend doesn't respect and keep those boundaries, steer clear of them. Keep the conversations respectful and avoid oversharing personal details too quickly. Make sure you set these clear boundaries about what you're comfortable discussing and what you're not. And again, trust your instincts. If something feels off, trust your instincts and proceed with caution. If not, run away. Now, it's better to be safe and take things slowly. You got to be realistic, and you got to set clearly defined boundaries in these new relationships. You've got to understand that not every match is going to lead to a serious relationship too. So set your own realism expectations to avoid disappointment. And make sure that you clearly define what you're looking for. Make sure you're communicating that and you're communicating the boundaries early on. This will help prevent misunderstandings, and it ensures that you both are on the same page as this relationship progresses. And if and when rejection comes, stay positive. Rejection is a normal part of dating or creating any new relationship. And frankly, you don't want to be with that person at that point. Maintain a positive outlook and don't take it personally. Remember that everybody is facing rejection at some point in their life. So consider talking to your friends or a therapist if you've got one, if you feel overwhelmed by these emotional aspects of online relationships. I think support systems can provide valuable perspective and encouragement to all of us. You know, I have heard so many stories of people who have experienced manipulative behavior online that I thought I'd mention a few of them just to help out. Some might remind you of my discussions around cult recruiting, and it's kind of interesting to me the fine line between legitimate and deviant behavior. So, first and foremost, be aware of signs of gaslighting, where somebody makes you doubt your own reality. This could include denying things that they previously said or did. And watch out for the love bombs. Be cautious of excessive flattery and be cautious of excessive attention early in the relationship. It can be a tactic used by manipulators to deceive you. They might try to create a quick, intense, emotional bond to somehow control you, and it works in some cases. Now, I recognize that this part is going to be a little bit repetitive, but I wanted to remind you once again to protect your privacy. Limit your social media experience and be mindful of what you're going to share on social media and who's going to have access to it. Adjust your privacy settings in your Facebook or whatever account you use and limit what's publicly visible. Ensure that your social media profiles are set to private to prevent strangers from accessing your personal information. And regularly review your settings to be cautious about what you're sending out and be really cautious about what friend requests you're accepting, especially from unknown individuals. If you're going to share information, share your personal information gradually and only when you're comfortable. Start with kind of generalized topics and slowly reveal more as that trust develops. Avoid revealing too much too soon. Now, this helps protect your privacy, but it also ensures that you're not giving away too much information that might be used against you by these potential scammers out there. Now, when you reach the point where you really do want to meet your new friend in person, do so in a public place. I'd recommend the first couple of face-to-face interactions that you have occur in some public place where there are a lot of people around you, in a place that you could easily leave if you're feeling uncomfortable. You might consider telling a friend or a family member about your plans, including where you're going to meet, who you're going to meet, and at what time you're going to meet. Tell them what time you're going to be home. Share your location with them during the date for added safety. And arrange for your own transportation to and from the meeting. That way you can maintain control over all of your movements. Avoid accepting rides from these people, someone you may have just met, and don't go anywhere with them if you don't control every aspect of what's happening. Even then, consider developing the relationship a little longer and do so kind of incrementally. Now, let's just kind of break away from my comments here and jump into the interview I had with Nancy Jo Sells. She's an award-winning journalist and an author who has some powerful thoughts around the online dating scene. Recently, I read a really interesting article in The Guardian by Nancy Jo Sells entitled, "Why Do Women Love True Crime So Much? I Have a Theory." And to share that theory firsthand, I thought it would be fun to invite Nancy Jo Sells on to talk about it. Nancy, welcome to Profiling Evil.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I've been looking at your work and it's so interesting. And it links up with a lot of things that I'm interested in too. So,
Oh, well, that's good. Well, hopefully, we'll have a fun conversation. I spent a law enforcement career investigating serial predators, and during COVID, my kids were so tired of me telling old cop stories. They said, "Why don't you tell one on YouTube?" And somehow, it seemed to resonate with our audience. So since then, we've been doing that. But let's talk about your article, because in that article, you share a number of theories around why women in particular are so attracted to these stories of serial killers and true crime. It's something that I've noted throughout my career as well, and statistically it proves out. But take a moment and share with our listeners why you think women are predominantly consumers of true crime information. And then let's kind of launch into a little bit of a discussion on what you think was missing in that research.
well, my work is in the field of women and girls, tech and its effects on society, social media and its effects on kids and society, um, and also dating and the dating space and dating apps, which are, very controversial and yet widely used because the dating app companies have sort of taken over the way that people date. And yet they are not safe. And that's something that's borne out by lots of statistics and studies and just really common sense, which is that, going on a date, being in a potentially, uh, you know, intimate situation with someone that you really don't know and is not vetted by these companies and is a really kind of an unknown quantity is dangerous, and so I think that is common sense. And I think that a lot of women who use dating apps are very well aware that they are potentially putting themselves in danger by going on a date with someone that they've never met before and that they've just met over the internet. And it's not a really an original thought with me to say that they're dangerous. I mean, this is well known. People who use them know this. Women know it. And yet women use them again because it's become necessary if you want to date to kind of use these things. Many people feel. So, you have upwards of 40 million people in the United States using dating apps, right? So there's just millions and millions of people using these things. But you're meeting with a stranger, right? And I always say, and you know, again, just common sense. If Ted Bundy were alive today, wouldn't he be finding victims on dating apps? Wouldn't he be on dating apps? Of course he would be, because he wouldn't have to put himself out there and go into the parking lot and pretend to have a hurt arm and all the things that he did to get women to help him to his car and pull them into his car. He could just go on Tinder and meet up with someone at the bar. He was a good-looking guy, and that was part of his MO, was that he used his looks and his weird sociopathic charm to get people to be in intimate situations with him.
What you're saying is really interesting to me from a profiling perspective, because we often talk about this idea of what the predator does. Years ago, I listened to a study on tracking the Arctic wolf as it moved around the tundra in the north. And as I watched and listened to this biologist explaining this, it struck me that these animal predators are very much like human predators. And it reminded me of a statement my grandfather made when I was a young boy and we were out fishing. And I said, what's the secret to catching fish? And he said, fish where there are fish. And so for a predator, yeah, looking at those sites is a place to look at someone who might let their guard down a little bit, might be a little more vulnerable to having a relationship, which might cause them to cast aside some of the risk that they recognize they might be facing by meeting someone. What are your thoughts about that?
I think that dating apps have become a tool for predators, and I've been writing about this for years. There has not been a lot of similar work done in mainstream media about this, and I find it really perplexing. Finally, people seem to be catching up. There was recently an article in, I think, Mother Jones, that was the title of which was "How Dating Apps Became a Paradise for Predators," which is true. And I think that the dating app story, the online dating industry story, is also a crime story, because you have just, you know, so many crimes committed through these apps, which predators and other types of criminals, it's not just sexual offenders, you see as a tool. They see them as a tool to gain access to people, especially women. There are you know instances of sexual assault, instances of theft, romance scams, all of these things. I mean, you know this is happening. So when you ask, why why are women so interested in true crime, which they've always been. It's not to say that dating apps created this interest in true crime, not at all. But I think that they have certainly fueled the interest in true crime, because what has happened is that you have I look, because I read about women and girls and their concerns and their issues a lot of the time. I look at this from the perspective of women and girls. So you have, and from teenagers on up. So you see, you want to date. You have a dating pool that is a lot of it is anonymous. So what do? You learn how to vet yourself. You learn how to vet them yourself. And this is what a lot of women have learned how to do. They have become, and I've learned this through talking to them, through interviewing them, hundreds of women and teenagers I've interviewed about dating over the last, say, 10 years or so. And, I had one of the women that I interviewed said, she was a woman in her 30s, said, any of my friends, I mean, she was joking, but it's a telling quote. She said, any of my friends could immediately be hired by the FBI, because they they've learned how to find out about, someone's history, someone's past, someone's job, where they come from, who they're, do all kinds of things about someone before going on this date with a person who they don't really know very well. And so I started thinking about how women typically in the past, all the articles that we've seen about women in true crime, and why are they so interested? And I read a lot of them say, well, because they're interested in it from the perspective of the victim, because they don't want to wind up a victim. That's true. And I think that that's also correct. But I think now also women are looking at true crime from the perspective of the detective and from law enforcement, because they're more putting themselves in the shoes of someone who needs to find out about this person, who needs to know whether this person is capable or has a history of uh, criminal offenses. So that's pretty much what it is. And I don't think there's any great, like mystery to it, or I don't think it's even that surprising of an insight on my part. I think it's something that I really heard from women themselves that I've talked to about it. It's like, of course, we have to use the tools of the internet and social media to research these people so that we won't get killed, raped, robbed, etc. That's pretty much it.
No, I think this is fascinating, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what kind of comments we end up with in the chat box, and what the feelings are of the people that are listening. Again, our primary demographic is female on Profiling Evil, so it'll be interesting to see. I guess the question that I would have for you is, from your experience of researching this and writing about it, if someone isn't that budding FBI agent that knows how to search the web, where would you suggest they um, find more information out about that possible someone they're going to meet?
I don't think people should use dating apps. I I I mean, after years of investigating them and talking to people about them and talking to people who work at these companies and seeing how the sausage is made, um, they're not safe. They're taking your money for something that really doesn't usually lead to very good results. They're designed to be addictive, and they're primary goal is not actually to help you find love and marriage, which statistically they don't do overall. I mean, everybody can say, oh, but I know this person who got married off Tinder. That's anecdotal. That's not data. The data, which the only data we really have is from Pew Research, suggests that only about 10% of people are really finding long term committed relationships, which most people want, men and women. That is what they want on these apps. So I think it's a scam, really. And I say that I don't feel that that's an irresponsible statement. I say that after years of looking into this and interviewing hundreds of people, once again, making a documentary film about it called Swiped, Hooking Up in the Digital Age, which was on HBO for 5 years. Now it's available on Amazon, Prime Video, other sites. And it's just it's just these companies are not interested in helping you find love, and they put you in danger. So I don't personally think that people should use dating apps. I don't think that they are a good thing for our society. I think they're leading to a lot of dysfunction and unhappiness and emotional upset. Also, just once people are on them, there's all kinds of harassment that occurs, and sort of unflattering comments, the sending or of non-consensual nudes. I mean, it's really kind of a cesspool. And once again, you really don't know who you're getting on them because they don't vet, because it's too expensive for them to vet. So I don't think people should use dating apps. But if you're
Uh, that message is coming through loud and clear, Nancy. Thank
okay,
you.
sorry. I
And
mean,
no,
I just
no, and thank you so much for sharing your opinions on this thing. I wondered if
but
people
if
want
you
to.
don't mind me just answering your question. Your question was, if you're going to use them, how do you vet people? You know, I just wanted to first say, well, I don't think people should use them at all. But if you're going to use them, then I think that you can easily Google, how do you vet someone on a dating app? I bet there's, multiple links to find out through different sites, through different ways of finding out about these people. But even still, you still never really know. And I would direct anyone who's interested to a very important study that was done by law enforcement in the UK about how dating apps are leading to sexual assault, how they promote an atmosphere of sexual assault. And this was a study that was done 5 or 6 years ago. So, I mean, you can find out about people to a certain extent. And I think that is partially why women in particular are so interested in true crime, because they are, I think, partly looking at these scenarios to get information on how to protect themselves.
This is awesome. In fact, I'm going to call this up, and we're going to look at it real quick just to prove your point here about the availability of information. I put up, how do you invest? Are there places where people can follow you and keep up on articles that you're writing? Maybe even reach out to you from time to time.
Sure. I mean, I've been a journalist for about 30 years. I have a website, nancyjoesales.com, and I do articles and books. And again, I made a film. I have an article in the Guardian. I write for the Guardian newspaper as well, and I have an article in the Guardian today actually about, again, my concern a lot is the dangers of tech. And today, my article is about, unfortunately, a child was raped in the metaverse. Now you say, how can someone be raped in virtual reality? Well, read the article. I mean, it's about how, there's a decades of debate about this. Like, can sexual assault actually happen in virtual reality? Well, to the people, it's a very immersive experience, and to the people that it's happening to, it does feel like the emotions involved are often very similar to a physical sexual assault. And this was a child who was set upon by several adult men in the metaverse. So these are my types of concerns. I mean, I think that so often mainstream media is a cheerleader for these tech companies. They tell us how great it is and how all of this stuff is going to change our lives. And it's so fantastic that you can just get whatever you want with the push of a button. a lot of times it's not that simple, and a lot of times they dismiss or ignore, because I think that they favor the power and the the kind of billionaire status of these, you know, leaders of tech. They favor that over the lone user whose safety and sometimes emotional well-being is really in jeopardy through using these services. So that's my concern. And if you're interested in any of that, that's what I write about. That's what I do. I wrote a book called American Girls: Social Media and the Secret Lives of Teenagers that came out in 2016. That, I mean, it was one of the first to really talk about teenagers and how social media wasn't really good for them at all. And it wasn't until years later that Frances Haugen, the Facebook whistleblower, came out and said Facebook Facebook's own internal research revealed that Instagram was undermining the confidence and body image and all that of teenage girls. And now we have a mental health crisis among children and teens. 33 attorneys generals in California are now suing Meta, the company that owns Facebook and Instagram, for causing this mental health crisis among children and teens. So that's something I've been on before others were talking about it, because I mean, it just seems so urgent to me. And really, again, what it comes down to for how our work intersects, yours and mine, is this is really about crime. This is really a crime story. These companies are creating environments in which crimes occur on a regular basis, daily, hourly basis. And yet they bear no responsibility whatsoever because of Section 230. I'm sure you know what that is. It's that aspect of internet law that says that they cannot be sued by third parties. In other words, if I go on a date on Tinder or Bumble or one of these dating apps, and God forbid I get raped, I can't sue Tinder. I can't sue Bumble. Well, I can. I mean, anybody can sue anybody, but it's unlikely that I would be successful in that lawsuit
Yeah.
because of their protections under the law, which just seems crazy to me. And it seems not right to me. Because if somebody, I once interviewed a matchmaker, and, someone who does the old school kind of like sets people up through her connections and her, matchmakers have this pool of people that they hook up with each other. And I said, would you ever send someone on a date with someone you hadn't vetted? And she said, of course not. Of course not. I mean, that would be just completely irresponsible. That would be dangerous. And also, I would get sued because, if anything happened, she said I could get sued.
Yeah.
These companies cannot get sued. And that's really goes down to the problem, because they're all about the bottom line.
This has been fascinating. And Nancy, I hope that you will come back again sometime. And maybe if you have stories you're working on that you need a cop's perspective, feel free to reach out. I'd be.
We'll ask you this. So I'm interested to know from you, with your background in knowing about profiling and the profiling of serial predators, um, knowing what you do about them, how do you think they view these tech? Uh, how does a serial profiler look at, say, Facebook, Instagram, Tinder? What is it to them that they can, reach people in this manner?
Well, I think when you talk about serial predation, you have to keep in mind that the predator, like any predator, is going to evolve over time. They're going to hunt where there's game, or they're going to fish, like my grandfather said, where there are fish. So they're going to go to places where they can exploit victims, oftentimes, especially in early stages of the development of a serial predator, they're going to hunt for victims where they can be pretty much guaranteed they're going to be successful. There's going to be they're going to look at things like people in the sex trade industry where they can quickly get them away from an area. What we figured out a long time ago when we studied hundreds and hundreds of predatory crimes is that low risk victims, which might be a homemaker who, goes to PTA meeting and has a really tight, close circle of friends, goes to the grocery store on Saturday, the to church on Sunday where she plays the piano. Um, an individual that's considered a low risk individual lives a low risk lifestyle. When they are victimized, they're victimized by someone generally who is known to them, and they're an actual target of whatever that assault is. So think of some of the cases you've looked at over time. On the other hand, um, someone who's living a high risk lifestyle, someone who's in the drug trade, or a juvenile that runs away from home and is out on the street, or a sex trade worker, when they're victimized, they are generally victimized by someone who's a complete stranger to them. Now, that doesn't mean that that predator might not already know who they are through peeping through a window or other kinds of things, but there's a disconnect in the relationships. And when that happens, it it's an opportunistic crime. It's not a targeted crime. So the truck driver who picks up a woman hitchhiking and then assaults her is an opportunistic crime. And so the only thing that can really change those two polar boundaries is a process of risk elevation, and we all do it every day when we make decisions. Let's say you walk out of the mall tonight after shopping, and your car is across the parking lot in the dark, and there's a gang of people hanging around by the car, or even an individual hanging around the car. You have to make a conscious decision of, am I going to change my risk level based on the situation, the circumstance, the environment that you're in? And do I go back and say, I want a security officer to walk me to my car? Or do I then venture into the dark myself and change my risk level? And so when I think about things like the internet, I think number one, predators are going to go where they believe they can have greater access to more game using a very uh, blunt assessment, and that they're going to learn and evolve. And when they fall short, they're going to go back and fix where they fell short. They're going to change the narrative and the way they socialize. They might grab a different photograph of who they are purporting to be, and they will become better and better. And this is where these really weird experiences and fantasies come into play with serial predators, because if you think about the role of fantasy, fantasy is always going to be cooler than reality. And so they're going to conjure up in their mind some fantasy of what's going to happen in this little escapade that they're putting together. But when they finally corner that victim, and that victim starts fighting or crying or saying no, 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 all of a sudden that fantasy collapses. And the predator, being a predator, is going to still assault and hurt the victim and complete the act that's part of their fantasy. But they're going to go home frustrated because it didn't come out like they wanted. So they have to go home and start re-fantasizing and refiguring out where things went wrong. And pretty soon the fantasy's not good enough and they have to act it out. And that's why we see serial predators repeat their activities over time. But they evolve usually over time until they reach a point where they start to kind of decompose and become disorganized in things and become less patient to put together the groundwork. And that's where we see them making mistakes. So sadly, when you're dealing with predatory behavior that's serial in nature, it's usually, let's wait out for this process to run.
That's so fascinating. And when I'm listening to you talk about this, I'm thinking something's coming up in my mind. Another story that I wrote last year. Well, now it's 2022, so it's just over a year ago. Um, there's a way in which what you're saying links up with some of the things that I've looked at in terms of how crimes happen through the internet as well. Because do you remember, are you aware of the case where this very disturbed young man, killed four sorority girls? I think it was four, three or four in a house where he also killed a young man in the house. It happened in Moscow because I remember when that case broke, and it's just so horrific. Um, and it gained national, international attention for the brutality of it. And also that these were lovely young people that he just slaughtered in their sleep, basically, in their own home. And I remember when it happened, I did a Facebook post or Instagram post or something saying, I bet you anything it's going to come out that he was somehow connected with these people on social media. Because again, like, I don't think that given the world that we live in today, I don't think that that is a very, startling concept that he would have used social media to track these people. And I remember I got enormous pushback from people saying, "No, how can you say that? That's so irresponsible. You don't know that." Well, of course, it turned out that he was tracking them on Instagram. He also was on Tinder. He had been on a Tinder date, not with one of them, but with another person. So, there you go right there. You go on Tinder, you don't know if it's Brian Kohlberger. You don't know, and so, but the way that it links up with what you're saying is like he did know them. So what you're saying about familiarity, he did know them. He was in their area. He went to a kind of pizza restaurant or some kind of restaurant where some of the girls were waitresses. He was watching them there. He had somehow found out who they were through going to their house. Well, he knew a lot about them from Instagram. He was following them on Instagram. A lot of young people, they just want followers. So they'll say, yeah, yeah, sure, sure, to whatever follower because they want their numbers to go up. But you don't know if it's Brian Kohlberger or Ted Bundy or whoever. You really just don't know. And he just one last thing, he had even messaged some of them. This all came out later. He had messaged some of them on Instagram. He was trying to, that's part of the dating world today too. It's not just Tinder and Bumble and Hinge. It's also Instagram and it's also Facebook. People will, somebody once said to me, the whole internet is a dating app in a way. So what a lot of guys will do, well, they'll just like say, "Hey, how you doing?" on Instagram and trying to get someone to talk to them. And he had done that with at least one of these girls, these young women. So there's what you're talking about plus internet. You have this familiarity. He saw them around. He got interested in them just from seeing them in their world. But at the same time, he was using the internet as a tool to enhance his knowledge of them, to find out where they were, what they were all about, maybe where they lived. So it's interesting, right? That these two things are happening now together. What you're saying, the kind of classic profiling that you're talking about, plus this kind of ultra tool, which is the internet. You know, the internet, as we know, was created by the military to communicate in wartime. That was why it was invented. Really, that's how its initial creation was, so that the military would have a tool in case of nuclear war, or some terrible disaster. And it's become, I mean, there's no greater surveillance tool than the internet, really, that's ever existed. And you have people like this guy who he's sick, he's twisted, he sees these girls around at the pizza restaurant, whatever, he's interested in them, and then he's looking them up on social media, finding them, learning more about them, stalking them, driving by their house. So it's this kind of like what your long time expertise has taught you, plus this other new, kind of terrible realm in which these criminals can have access to people that they never could have contacted before.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think it's unrealistic to think that the world is going to disconnect. So
Never.
one of the things that I try to do on this channel is talk about risk reduction, and the Moscow Four are a perfect example of four kids that probably couldn't have changed too many things, and they still would have been victimized. Versus somebody else who says, I'm going to go to a bar and drink and then go home with somebody that I've never met before. Those kinds of things start elevating our risk, and those are things that we could do differently to impact it. Now, certainly there are things that the kids in Moscow could have done to fortify the home better, or to maybe change their lifestyles and maybe not be out walking along the street in the late hours right before the assault. But in that particular case, I don't know that it would have changed the
No,
outcome.
I don't. I mean, I honestly never blame a victim for anything. I don't think, I don't blame dating app users. I don't blame we're the we're the victims. We who use these
Well,
services, we're the
I'm
ones
going
who
to
are
interrupt you right there
unprotected.
just for a second, because while I agree 100% that we don't blame the victim, and the victim
You're saying
never
there are steps
deserves to
to take.
have happen what happened,
Yeah.
we still have to accept the reality that
Oh,
we play a part in our level of risk. That
absolutely. And that's why I tell, I mean, parents say to me, what age should I get my child a cell phone? And, I mean, honestly, what I think is never, you know, that's my feeling. Never. Why would you give your vulnerable little child a, a portal through which strangers can contact them? It just seems like crazy. It seems crazy to me, but that's not gonna happen. I know that's not gonna happen. I know that everybody's giving their kids cell phones. I mean, it used to be 12, then it was 10, then it was 8, then it was 6. To me, it's completely crazy. It's not necessary to give your kid a cell phone, but, yes, I agree with you. There are steps we can take to protect ourselves, and yet at the same time, it really never is the fault of a child who starts talking to someone on, you know, one of the really bad ones that I don't that I've heard about is Kick and all these different ones. There's predators all over the place, and what's frustrating is the people who, I mean, and from your work, and I know from my work that these dangers are real. But what's frustrating is the people who dismiss this and say, "Oh, you're just you're just stranger danger. You're a Luddite. You don't really get what the kids are doing today." Well, I've been interviewing teenagers for 30 years. I get what I hear. I know what they tell me, and I know that they tell me that I have never let me tell you something. I have never interviewed a teenager who hasn't been approached by a stranger online at some point. So I think it's really interesting, just to see how these things evolve, and there are steps that we can take. Now, as for the young people in Idaho, it was Idaho, right? Not Iowa.
yes.
Sorry for that mistake. It's been a while since I did that. Um, yeah, sure. There were steps that they could take. You can make your account private. There's all kinds of things you can do, but ultimately, it, it's a Pandora's box that's open. It's just open,
Yeah.
and the more that people, I just try and make people aware of the dangers, because the more you are aware, the more you might take steps to protect yourself, even though I never say it's someone's fault for being a victim. But you have to be aware. You can't put your head in the sand, especially as a parent of small children.
No. Hey, folks, I want to thank Nancy Jo Sells for coming on Profiling Evil. And Nancy, I hope you'll come back again, especially if you get some really cool, intriguing crime story that you want to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. I do a lot of crime stories. I mean, that's totally in my wheelhouse. And, you know, it's it's interesting to me the changing nature of crime and the way that the internet and social media has influenced the way that criminals work, the way that they approach their victims, the way that they use the internet as tools. They don't see it the way Mark Zuckerberg says, or the way that the average, grandma sees it. It's not just a way to post pictures of a birthday party for a criminal. It's a way to find a victim, and that's scary.
Really like to thank Nancy Jo Sells for agreeing to chat about this important subject. And I hope that this video has helped you gain an understanding of the online dating world and some of the pitfalls associated with this new challenge in all of our lives. I apologize that it took me so long, Nancy, to get the video out, but thanks again so much for participating. Now, I hope the tips and the discussion empowered each of you, or hopefully your loved ones if you pass it on, to go about the game of creating relationships a little more cautiously. Online sources of connection are fraught with pitfalls, but they also have opportunities. So take advantage of technology tools to secure your profile and your personal information. Some of the most used tools are VPNs, these virtual private networks, which will enhance your online privacy by masking your IP address. It encrypts your internet connection. This helps you protect data from being intercepted by somebody you don't want getting it. And if you're like me, you probably hate all these new two-factor authentication tools, but they really do provide an extra layer of security. So consider using them. This second form of verification makes it a lot harder for unauthorized users to access your data and get into your accounts. And make sure you stay up to date on common online dating scams and safety tips. As a community, through continuous learning, we're all better equipped to stay ahead of evolving threats. So encourage more discussion about online dating safety among your friends, your family, your community, your church, anything to raise awareness and share your experiences and knowledge for the betterment of everyone. Above all, practice safe online dating habits and become a role model that inspires others to prioritize their safety as well. That inspires others to build stronger, supportive networks. That through this collective wisdom, we all learn how to navigate this online experience easier and better. Now, I'm not sure if I fully believe this comment that I'm about to make, but I think online dating can be a rewarding and successful way to meet new people. However, it requires vigilance and proactive measures to ensure safety and to reduce your risk of victimization. Prioritizing personal information, security, recognizing and avoiding scams, protecting privacy, ensuring safe interactions online, maintaining emotional well-being, leveraging technology tools, all of these are crucial steps toward a better, more fulfilling online experience. I'd really like to know your thoughts on this one, folks, so I hope you'll put them down below. Now, if you'd like to support Profiling Evil, you can do so by sending us a gift through Amazon gift cards. Well, hey everybody, it's Mike from Profiling Evil, and did you know that you could go to Amazon and send us a gift card as a donation that we can use in purchasing equipment, or frankly for buying a Diet Dr. Pepper? All you need to do when you log into your Amazon account is go up and type in Amazon gift card. When you're there, you'll notice that there's an opportunity to go down and just click on the Amazon gift card and put any amount that you'd like in here for us. For instance, I'm going to send myself a $5 gift card, but I'm going to send it to profilingevil@gmail.com. I'm going to send it from me, and this is a gift card. Then once you're done, all you got to do is say, hey, I like it, and hit buy now. And it'll send off the gift card. I'll receive it and enjoy whatever that little kind gift is that you give. Thanks so much for considering this. That way we get all of your donation rather than having it go through that YouTube machine where a large portion is stripped out as fees for them. Remember that you can find Profiling Evil on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Hey, and please hit that like and subscribe button and share Profiling Evil with your friends. And don't forget to check out Profiling Evil audio podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. Hey, thanks for your support, and we'll see you soon at the next crime scene.